Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're jumping into the story of a man who faced down a nation's injustice with just his voice, his courage, and a really powerful dream, Martin Luther King Jr.
To really get what Martin Luther King Jr. was up against, you have to go back in time. And not that long ago, really. Picture an America where racial segregation was the actual law of the land. It started on your very first day of school, where your whole future could be limited just because of the color of your skin.
And it didn't stop there. This system, it seeped into every corner of public life. Even something as simple as a bus ride became a daily humiliation, with rules telling you exactly where you could and couldn't sit.
Yeah, it meant being told you couldn't sit at a lunch counter, or having to deal with things like literacy tests and poll taxes, all just designed to stop you from having your say, from your right to vote. This was the kind of deep, pervasive injustice that was just woven into the fabric of society.
But right in the middle of this deeply entrenched system, one man stood up and said, with total moral clarity, "This is not right." And that man, of course, was Martin Luther King Jr. His story is just incredible proof of how one person's courage can challenge an entire system.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. To get a sense of just how monumental King's work was, we've got to look at the world he was born into back in 1929.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just, people's bad attitudes. It was written into law. This whole system of legal separation was known as the Jim Crow laws, and it basically created two different and very unequal societies inside one country.
So yeah, segregation wasn't some abstract idea. It was a daily, in-your-face reality. It was built into every part of public life to reinforce inequality at every single turn, from separate schools and buses to even taking a sip of water from a public fountain. So the question is, how do you even start to fight something that big, something so woven into society? Well, it all kicked off with one person's simple, courageous acts of defiance on a city bus.
It all started back in December 1955. A seamstress named Rosa Parks gets arrested because she refused to give up her seat to a white passenger. That one act of defiance lit a spark, and it led to the Montgomery bus boycott. The community needed a leader, and they asked a young, charismatic pastor to lead their protest, a 26-year-old Martin Luther King Jr.
And get this, for over a year, 381 days straight, people walked, they carpooled, they absolutely held the line with this peaceful protest. The discipline and unity were incredible. And you know what? They won. The boycott finally ended when the Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. That victory shot King into the national spotlight.
So that victory in Montgomery, it was way more than just a win against segregated buses. It was proof of concept. It cemented the core philosophy that would drive the entire civil rights movement, the power of peace.
King was really inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's work over in India, and he was absolutely committed to this idea of nonviolent resistance. He argued that violence just creates more violence. The only path to real, lasting justice, he believed, was by showing moral strength, not by using physical force.
So this wasn't just a philosophy, it became a playbook. They had very specific, highly organized tactics, things like peaceful marches, sit-ins at segregated lunch counters, and economic boycotts. They were all designed to shine a big, bright light on the brutality of the system, all without ever resorting to violence themselves. And all of this powerful strategy of peaceful protest, it all led up to one of the most famous and defining moments in all of American history.
Okay, so fast forward to August 1963. King helps organize this massive event, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And we're talking over 250,000 people, black and white, all gathering peacefully in the nation's capital. This was a huge, undeniable demand for not just civil rights, but for economic justice too. And it's there, standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that King delivers what becomes, the speech. He didn't just list a bunch of problems. He painted this incredible, hopeful picture of an America where his own kids would be judged by who they are, not what they look like. It was a vision that just electrified the entire nation.
And here's the thing. That vision, it wasn't just a pretty speech. Backed by years of relentless, peaceful protest, it actually worked. It led to real, tangible changes that reshaped the entire country.
You can draw a direct line from King's leadership and the movement's pressure to two huge pieces of federal law, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These didn't just tweak a few rules, they completely dismantled the legal framework of segregation that had been in place for almost 100 years.
And that is why we still talk about him so much today. It's not just that he helped change laws in America. He basically gave the world a blueprint for how to create change. His methods, his message, they've inspired countless movements for justice all over the globe, and they're still doing it.
And you have to remember the personal risk here. I mean, he was facing constant death threats. His home was bombed. He was arrested again and again. But his commitment to justice just never, ever wavered. And even though he was tragically killed when he was only 39, his belief in this one simple, powerful idea is his lasting legacy.
So his incredible story really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? He wasn't a president or a general. He was a citizen who led with courage and with peace. His life is proof that one voice, when it's used wisely for what is right, can absolutely change the world.